I think I was very similar to a lot of people where you're fresh, you're green, you're new out of college, you don't really know, you just take the first thing that's given to you. You aren't that savvy when it comes to what you can negotiate or how to negotiate or why you should even negotiate. Those are kind of my three pillars: is what, how, why. You don't ask questions, you sign on the dotted line and you're off. Which in the beginning of your career, I mean, you don't have a ton of leverage. It's not like you're super senior and you can get all the fancy schmancy stuff, but I still now encourage everybody at every level to negotiate in some way.
Before we start the show, I have a quick question for you. Is your resume stuck in the rejection pile? At Resume Assassin, I create powerful resumes that showcase your skills, experience, and achievements, getting you noticed by recruiters. I'll also optimize your LinkedIn profile, transforming it into a magnet for opportunity. Visit resumeassassin.com today and take charge of your job search. Visit resumeassassin.com. Devon Hennig, welcome to Recruiting Insider.
Hey Mary, how's it going?
Good.
Mary and Ivy, I should say. We were just in the green room and the dog Ivy's in the background with us.
Yes, I had to kick my dog out so that you didn't hear barking throughout this entire episode. So it seems like I have conversations every single day where someone tells me that they have a unique background. But Devon, you truly have a crazy background. Could you tell us a little bit more about you and your background and who you are?
Yeah, if by crazy you mean the game show host part, that's the real doozy for a lot of people. I mean, I have it on my LinkedIn profile in different places. I'm a writer, marketer, ex-game show host, and that would take a whole separate podcast episode to explain. But I mean, the super quick origin story. I mean, I'm a small town kid from Midwest Canada. I don't know if you know where Saskatchewan is, or if you could point that on a map.
I don't think I could.
I usually tell people to picture Montana and then just drive north forever. It's keep going.
Drive north forever.
And grew up there, had the big dreams, wanted to get out, do big stuff. Started my own company at one point right out of school. That totally failed, complete disaster, should make a movie about it kind of thing. After that was the game show episode piece, and probably my favorite job so far of my entire career. Had tons of fun there, but I mean, this was not Jeopardy. This was not Family Feud. I was not really rolling in it then either. So post that, I found myself in tech and software, and was lucky enough to start at a startup that was a rocket ship, like a lot were at that period, and was able to leapfrog a few positions from pretty much their first marketing hire all the way up to VP of demand gen as they grew and built out that whole team. And after that, went to a public company and ran all of marketing at that place before a couple of years ago, quit that stuff and went out on my own. Now consultant, writer, and all that jazz.
Wow. That's so cool. I don't know that I meet too many people that say that in their past, they've been a game show host. And I looked it up on your website. I saw it was called Face the Music.
Yeah, there is. I did put the backstory there so people can go check that out. It's the opposite of sexy game show. It was it was small town corporate Christmas parties. They would hire us. It was me and a DJ, and we would go around to these local credit unions and car dealerships to host their Christmas parties. But it was fun because you would get the most conservative, in their box people out of their shells. Your whole job was wild and crazy behavior and bonus points and get people dancing on the tables and all that. It was a good time.
Okay, the other cool thing that I saw, you once bought a Pez dispenser for 10 cents and you flipped it for $300.
Mary, I'm going to tell you something. I am a recovering Pez addict. I used to be mega collector. This is the first time I've talked of this publicly. But
Let it out,
I would go to garage sales, and the trick is you got to find the ones without the feet. The feet came around later, but if you can find the ones without the feet, that's when you know they're older. And I found a one-eyed monster from the movies or whatever, and flipped that. That was my first big flip. That's probably my biggest flip to date, actually. Bought it for 10 cents, flipped it for $300. So not bad.
Wow, that's impressive. I was a huge affiliate for Beanie Babies, I think they were. And so, I always would buy a ton of Babies when I was younger and keep the tags on and hope to make that, $300 flip, and it never worked out in my favor.
Yeah. Do you still have them? Or did they
I
vanish?
do actually. My son has one of the Babies that I had from when I was younger.
Nice.
It's an awesome one. It's a Siberian Husky with blue eyes.
That is, you're describing our upstairs right now. Bins and bins of Beanie Babies that have now
Yes.
found new owners.
So you're currently a marketing consultant, an affiliate marketer, and it sounds like you also dabble in a lot of different areas within entertainment and media. And one of those initiatives I saw is a popular TikTok channel, Boardroom Confidential, where you have 80,000 followers, and it's all about compensation and career tips. And the other thing that I saw was that you have written a book called The Senior Compensation Bible. And that's what we're going to talk about today. I mean, how the heck can we make a 6 or 7 figure difference in our compensation today? So what inspired you to write Senior Compensation Bible, and why do you think this topic is so important right now?
Well, this is most of my life right now, is this compensation content and the funny TikTok stuff and all that, because it's so needed. It is something a lot of people don't talk about right now. A lot of people need help with, which is negotiating, which is maximizing their comp package, and especially as senior leaders. I mean, no one teaches you how to do that. No one taught me, and that's how I got into it, was making so many mistakes and leaving so much money on the table and wanting to help others avoid all of that pain and suffering, and accelerate their careers by 10 years or whatever. So that was the seed of it. And I actually wrote this a long time ago, as I was picking up tips and tricks and making those mistakes and just kind of putting it all in a document. And then I promoted it a little bit and just left it until I was negotiating a new offer myself. And I'm like, I'm going to pull that thing out and see if there are any tips I can, teach myself from that. And I cracked it open. And I'm like, holy shit, this thing's good. And it actually, I helped myself.
I'm a genius.
I'm a genius. So I'm like, I need to go back and promote this. It was kind of like Father Time gave me that kind of wisdom. But now I've been just preaching it from the mountaintops, and I've got a lot of, overwhelming support for it, and a lot of messages every day of executives emailing me saying, wow, I didn't know that you could even negotiate all this stuff, or it made this huge difference in my equity or milestone payments or whatever. People send me their offers all the time to look at. I'm always happy to do that. And I encourage anyone who's either interviewing right now or negotiating or thinking about it or about to definitely don't be a stranger. Like, whether you get the book or not, I'd be happy if you do. But if you just are at a point where you need help, find me on LinkedIn, connect with me, whatever, if you're interested after you hear the rest of this pod.
Yeah. And so you said that when you first started negotiating your salary, you made a lot of mistakes yourself. Could you talk to us about what those mistakes were?
In the early days, I think I was very similar to a lot of people, where you're fresh, you're green, you're new out of college, you don't really know, you just take the first thing that's given to you, right? Like you aren't that savvy when it comes to what you can negotiate or how to negotiate or why you should even negotiate. Those are kind of my 3 pillars: is what, how, why. And you don't ask questions, you sign on the dotted line, and you're off. Which in the beginning of your career, you don't have a ton of leverage. It's not like you're super senior and you can get all the fancy schmancy stuff. But I still now encourage everybody at every level to negotiate in some way. And there is, even at the most junior stage, stuff you can get that you're not getting. I guarantee everyone listening to this podcast can be making more than they're currently making, and happy to go through kind of like all those ways.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll definitely dig into that here in a little bit. And I think that one factor is that salary negotiation is just super intimidating for most people. Like you said, a lot of people, they've never done it before, or even if you're at that senior executive level, you probably haven't negotiated your salary too many times in your life. So, it can be really intimidating. And I mean, in fact, many of the executives that I've seen have a difficult time with this. And I've actually heard someone say that, part of this intimidation factor is that, they might be negotiating with someone that they might be leading in the future even, and I'm sure there are tons of other reasons as well. So, for our listeners who are preparing to enter a salary negotiation soon, what advice do you have for them?
Well, you're totally right that people don't get a lot of reps at this. Like, think of how often you're actually negotiating a new offer. Yeah. Very rare. Even it's more common than it used to be. Like, people are hopping jobs every couple of years, but still, that's only a couple of years. So you don't get the practice that that is required to be good at anything. I mean, negotiation is as much an art as it is a science. Like, there are ways to study it and get better. Maybe not become the best in the world at it, but certainly, better than somebody who's not practicing it and thinking about it, right? So a lot of these skills are learnable and come back to those three, like what, how, why things that I mentioned. So if I had to like boil it down and summarize those three things, it would be the what piece is really like getting smart around what your options are. And when you're younger in your career, a lot of people just think about salary and maybe bonus and maybe like stock options or something the company's offering them. And that's all they're really aware of. But as you get more senior, you have more optionality and more chances to add extras and sweeten the pot kind of thing. In the how bucket, it's more like, especially if you're not a salesperson and you're not used to negotiating, there are just all sorts of tactics like objection handling and positioning statements and how to use odd numbers and ranges and all those kind of like tips and tricks that can really help. But then finally in the why bucket, I mean, this is maybe mostly what you're talking about, which is like mindset and people getting comfortable with it. And, a lot of folks just are nervous about an offer disappearing. Yeah. They just take the first thing that's given to them because they are worried they're going to lose it, when the reality is that is not true at all. Like, when you have an offer, you have leverage, you are the one they want. They do not want to restart this search. They have just made an offer to you, and the ball is in your court to kind of make the most of it. And if you're a salesperson, it's going to be a huge red flag if you don't negotiate, or any real senior person. So getting over that concern and doubt and that realization is a big step for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. The employer should inspect or expect you to negotiate your salary. Yeah. So there's no need. Do you
remember your first offer? Like, what were your first experiences?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was my first job right out of graduate school, and it was actually at the University of Texas at Austin. So I felt lucky to even have received a job offer because there were hundreds and hundreds of other applicants. Even at a time, this was like 2012, 2013. So it wasn't like it was in a market like we're in today where it's, super, super competitive, but it's just kind of the nature of UT Austin to be very, very competitive. People want jobs there. So when I received an offer, it was really exciting. And I actually had also received another offer that was about 10, 15% higher than my offer at UT Austin. I tried to negotiate. I had some negotiation power because I had just finished my master's degree, and it was, in a relevant subject. I had, obviously a bachelor's degree, and then I'd taken 3 years off in between there to get some really highly relevant work experience. So I did have a little bit of leverage, and not a lot of people were coming in with a master's degree and these years of experience as well. So I tried just kind of blindly to negotiate just a little bit higher salary, really just to match what the other offer that had been given to me. And it was about I would say like an $8,000 difference or something right around there, given the salary was really, really low. I mean, if you know anything about working at a university, you don't get paid a lot, but you get a lot of really great benefits. So when they came back, there was really, or so they said, they couldn't budge. Like the offer was what the offer was. And so eventually what I did end up doing was negotiating a different type of benefit where they had this option where you could take 3 credit hours each semester for free as a staff member there. And then I kind of negotiated it in a way that instead of taking those 3 credit hours per semester, I would take an extra 30 minutes at lunch to go to the gym and exercise, which was a huge part of my life at that time. And for my mental health, for obviously my physical health, it just made me a happier, more motivated, better person to be around during the day. And I loved it. So I could jump on my bike, 30 minutes. I would leave at 11:30, 11:20 sometimes, and be back by 1. And I wouldn't have to get up super early to exercise, and I could just knock it out then. So, to me, that was huge. That was probably even better than a little bit more money.
That warms my soul. I feel like this is a very common situation, especially for junior entry level, right? Where
Yeah.
maybe the range, the main core cash parts are rigid or rigider, and there's not a lot of flexibility, especially if it's really competitive. But you can get creative. Like what matters in other areas? What is, a good win-win where if it's something left field, a gym membership or covering a co-working space or I don't know, your parking spot or something that's like a low ticket item but valuable to you, that's it you can frame that as like, hey, this might be a little left field, but what would be really important to me is XYZ. They could think, oh, that's a no-brainer because that's going to help close this person we really want.
Yeah, and so now I have to flip that around on you and ask about your first experience negotiating.
I mean, it would have been with that tech company, the super startup,
Yeah.
and I completely just took what was given to the point where, like, did not even think or know to ask about like stock options and equity at a seed or Series A kind of company. It must have been like, I don't know, 60K out of school or 70K or something like that. No bonus at the time, like the most bare bones of any like offer it was. So, this negotiating is not in my DNA. I'm not like a born and bred, I'm naturally good at this. No. I sucked for forever. Even when I went back to that company later, I was like, the number's gonna have to start with an 8 or something like cheesy, like bad. But thankfully I did get, smarter about it. And a lot of it is just benchmarks. If you're, arming yourself with what is good market data, not even on the salary alone, but like on, equity. Like if we get into like stock options and RSUs and all that, like this is another thing that's super intimidating for a lot of people because it's the reps piece again, right? Like we're not founders or VCs. Like we don't do this every day. We don't know equity structures and what stock option pools are like. Like it's all Greek, and you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't learn a little bit about it and what's, what you should be getting, what you should be asking, what a lot of companies are not just going to volunteer a lot of the information. Like you're going to have to get it out of them. So that's what I spend a lot of time helping people figure out.
Yeah, and I loved one thing that you said was that you're not a negotiator at heart. That's not something that comes naturally to you. And I think that a lot of people can relate to that. So for those people that are like you and they're like, I'm just not good at negotiating, it's not something that I even like to do, what would you tell them?
Then if it's not what you're good at, that still doesn't give you an excuse not to do it. I think you have to realize that this is one of those comfort zone things that is very important in life. Sometimes you can just kind of stay in your lane and do the comfort zone thing, but you are just doing such a massive disservice to your future self, your earnings, your family's, potential and all that. So this is something that you need to figure out how to get good at. And whatever is going to help you with that, for me, it's like scripting. Like I need talk tracks. I am a guy who used to do a lot of acting and was used to more memorizing scripts and very uncomfortable in like improv and areas where like I didn't have a script. So that's even translated into my business life where I have, and these are in the book too, like a lot of talk tracks of, okay, if you're unhappy with this part of the offer or you want this or it's left field or whatever, this is how you can phrase it to not be a douche or, be professional about it, right? And that's helped me the most probably.
Yeah, so then you don't feel like you're going at it alone. You have these different scripts and these different things that you can reference so that you can talk intelligently about what it is you want and why you want it and why you should receive it.
100%. And a lot of those things might be a bit more forward or direct than you're comfortable with it at the start, but they're battle tested. They're like, this is good to be direct in situations like this, right? Like if one of my favorite lines, especially with equity or some long-term benefit or whatever, is to go to them and say, I appreciate the offer, but the stock options for me are significantly lower than what I was expecting. That's the way I like to be incentivized, is through long-term options and to get invested with the company's success. So I would be wanting blank kind of thing. And that helps, I mean, it sounds super aggressive at the start because it's like, oh, this is significantly lower than what I was hoping for. But if you say that genuinely and you explain a little bit about the, like, I want to be invested long term, and then you state what you want, that's just a good way of phrasing it.
Yeah, you're making it really, really clear. As long as you're communicating clearly, this isn't up to my expectations, but this is, what is up to my expectations, and this is what I want. Just being really clear and direct too is not only helpful for you in getting what you want and what you deserve, but I would imagine it's also really makes it clear to your potential employer, like, okay, yep, this is what he wants. Let's see if we can make it happen.
Well, and I've been lucky enough to work with a lot of like CEOs and different C-level folks and watch what happens in their conversations. And I mean, it's the ultimate example of candor and direct communication. Like I was just working with somebody, of course, everything and everybody I work with is confidential, but the gist was, I'll just use random numbers, but it was like, they were asking for the initial offer, call it just like $500,000 salary. And they came back just like complete, like blank face, like 8. And it was just like stated. It was like, that back and forth was like 2 messages, very direct, cut through the BS and the fluff, like, and they, got to a number that was good for both sides. But yeah, I think it's interesting. Just communication styles, the more senior you get, the more direct it is, the less fluff. And, I was listening to something the other day where it was like, who was this? Ryan Serhant. I don't know if you listen to the real estate guy. He's like on Netflix shows or whatever. And he was talking about how like all the billionaires he knows, because he sells a lot of high-end real estate. He's like, all the billionaires I know just text. They're very brief with text. They're very curt with text. Their style is, ultra direct because they know time is money. That's, the only thing they're not going to get back. And he's sold like $100 million apartments just off the like button in an iMessage chat. That was like, I approve that kind of thing. Funny stories.
So I actually read a study recently too, stating that only 20% of people always negotiate their salaries, while up to 40% literally never negotiate their salary. And the largest reason for this is really just fear. I mean, fear of like maybe seeming demanding or coming on too strong, or like you said earlier, potentially of even losing the job offer. And I also want to take just a moment to point out that any women that are out there listening need to pay like really close attention to this because, another study that I read showed that less than 10% of women even attempt to negotiate their salary while almost 60% of men do.
Mm-hmm.
And then of those who negotiated, regardless of gender, increased their salary by over 7%.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we're talking like, these executives that are in a much higher earning bracket or salary bracket, that could potentially equate to millions of dollars in a lifetime pay, in additional raises, retirement earnings, whatever it might be. So why do you think people actually fear negotiation, and how can they overcome that fear?
Right. Well, part of it is mindset and background, and there are certainly gender and racial and all of those types of differences that come from, very deep-seated places. There's not one reason, but there are these multitudes of reasons, and like we were saying earlier, it definitely stems from mindset and not wanting to lose the offer and being uncomfortable and not knowing how to phrase things. And I mean, certainly the economy as well, like what's going on at a macro scale. There was just a report that came out from Pavilion I saw where they were talking about how at the executive level, like it's tough. It's really rough out there because it is more competitive. And one of the barometers they watch is how long executives negotiate for. Is it a week? Is it more than a week? Is it less than a week? Like what's the length of these negotiations? And it's super low right now. Like most execs aren't negotiating for longer than a week as of September 2024 kind of thing. So there is definitely an environment aspect to it. But if you focus on just the stuff you can control, like regardless of background and your personal, where you come from and what you're dealing with, I think there are definitely universal things that can help. So certainly on the mindset side, I mean, yes, realizing that you have the leverage is huge. And the more experience you get with this, the more you're going to see this. It does take a while to get that experience, but the practice is important. The listening to, stuff like this right before going into a negotiation and peppering yourself with all the material, the research that says, to your point earlier, the stats show if you negotiate, you're going to get this percentage increase. Like that all helps with the mindset. I think on more the tactical side, I would say this is all about leverage. So can you get multiple offers? The more you have on the table, the more you can play with, the more leverage you have, the more you're going to feel comfortable pushing back because you have something else to fall back on, right? Yeah. So more leverage is huge. I mean, there's certainly a lot of like learning how to be patient but persistent with certain things, like and this is all of those sales tactics as well, in terms of like how to objection handle, how to keep pushing for things, how to negotiate things like simultaneously instead of serially. Like you don't want to keep going back for more and more and more. Like that could be, perceived as, oh, this person just like, their list of demands is never ending. So there are like good ways and not good ways to go about it. And all of that together is going to give you just more confidence, because I think it comes down to confidence at the end of the day. Like how confident are you in those conversations?
Yeah. And I think you'll be more confident the more leverage that you have. And, you used that word leverage, and I love that. Can you talk to us a little bit more about what that means and how we can find different ways to leverage our background to get a higher salary or compensation package?
Yes. So leverage, I mean, in any negotiation, not just salary or compensation or whatever, is where the real power sits. Like, what is the dynamic? Who has that leverage? And in this situation, I think there are a couple sources of it. So certainly it's how well have you sold yourself? Like, how bad do they want you? Regardless of like what the numbers even are. Think about like luxury products, right? Like it's more emotional than it is like logical that you're going to pay some premium on an iPhone or, even other ultra luxury stuff, right? Like it's you've been told a story, you've been sold that this is going to solve your challenges or make you happy or fit the bill in whatever way. So I would start at like, how are you thinking about yourself like that premium product? And an exercise that I think helps a lot of people is like a positioning statement. How do you sit down one night and just write out a very succinct, like, this is what I'm going to tell everybody on the roadshow of interviews that I meet, right? And as an example, like, for a sales VP, I use this one all the time. It's from Scott Leese because it's great. He's like, I am the $0 to $25 million guy. I've done it 6 times. I've consulted with 12 companies on it. I will get in there. It'll take me 2 to 3 years, and we're going to go from X to Y kind of thing. And that's, if that positions you in their minds as like their solution to getting to their goal, and you are the guy or gal that is going to do, I mean, that's just, they'll be way more likely to open up a little bit more of their wallet to find the right person, right? So it's about positioning yourself as that right person. And then beyond that, I mean, it's leverage comes from so many places. It comes from, do you have multiple offers and are you okay with walking away? Do you have savings that you can fall back on because you don't have to worry about putting food on the table for a couple months while you look for something else? Has somebody recommended you for this role? Do you have like a strong champion in the company that's going to, tilt the scales one way or the other? I mean, the list could go on and on and on. And that's really what's worth figuring out, is how do you drum up as much as possible? And usually the challenge with promotions is that you don't have as much leverage. So often you're going to make the biggest jump in earnings when you go to a new role. This is why a lot of people job hop, right? Like some people are professional hoppers. Every 2 years, they're looking for something new. That's just how they upgrade their compensation. And there are pros and cons with that. But certainly people do it because they have more leverage. A new offer is the most leverage. That's when you have the most impact or the most ability to impact your compensation. And if you're looking to be promoted, typically the HR engine is like, pretty consistent around, that's going to earn you a 10 to 15% bump. Yeah. And if you want to go outside of that, you better have good leverage baked in to do that. So, it's interesting.
Yeah. I love the idea of a value statement. It's like, because when you're trying to sell yourself, it's just like, and I write resumes for a living. So it's like you're creating a unique value proposition. Your goal is to show, what value you bring to that position, what pain points are you going to solve for them? How can you step in and make that immediate impact? So, like with your example of Scott Leese, it's like, I'm the 0 to 20 million ARR guy. Like, who are you and why is that important to your potential employer? Figure out that one statement that makes yourself so valuable to your potential employer that maybe they can't give you everything that you're asking for, but perhaps they can come back and give you a little bit more than what was initially offered, or maybe even a little bit more than what they had initially planned to offer.
Do you recommend people put that like directly on their resume? Do you have people put a statement like that front and center?
Sometimes I will. Yeah. I mean, especially in that executive summary, with your executive summary, and that can actually change and evolve because it depends on the position that you're applying to and what that specific position and company is looking for. And so your value proposition can actually evolve just a little bit based on what that specific company is looking for in a candidate. So with when it comes to resume writing, it's how does my background, experience, skills, achievements, how do those things align with what this company is looking for in a candidate and what issues I can resolve, or what have I done in my past that's really highly relevant to what they're looking for. And then you want to pull up and highlight that front and center and have that kind of be part of your value proposition.
I like that. Do you ever give negotiation advice, or does your service kind of stop at the resume stage?
That's a great question. So I am a writer, so even being behind this camera right now is a huge stretch for me, because I love to write. I love to be behind the scenes. I love to write. But I actually have had, since the majority of my clients that I work with are at the senior level of their career, I work with a lot of executives. I get a lot of clients that do ask about salary negotiation. And so I do give advice, and I always preface it by saying I'm not a salary negotiation expert, but actually, quick story, I recently worked with a client. I'll call him Matt for confidentiality purposes. But he was a senior executive at a tech company, and he was being recruited for a really high level role at this fast growing startup. And so the initial offer, it was actually a good offer, in terms of like the base salary, but he knew that like that overall compensation package could be a lot better. And so he reached out to me for advice. And like I said, I told him I'm not an expert, but we kind of talked about what his goals are, both financially and personally. And then we identified just a few areas of opportunity. And, I think what we kind of landed on was benefits, right? So really, long story short, instead of like focusing solely on salary, he ended up negotiating like several targeted benefits to increase that total compensation package. And so it was like 401k matching, stock options with accelerated vesting was one of them, performance-based bonuses. Another one was, I think it was healthcare benefits and flex accounts. And then actually a sabbatical leave was another one, which I thought was really cool. And so that ended up making a huge difference in his total compensation package.
That's great. And I like thinking of it like that. I always encourage folks to talk about it as a total compensation package, or just total compensation, because that helps bring the company on your side too, to think holistically about it, not just the cash, right? The reason I ask that is because I'm just addicted to like finding little special moves or tricks or one-liners people use. Do you have anything like in offers or otherwise, like where you've got a little black belt move or a little ninja line or anything like that?
From what perspective? From a negotiation perspective, like salary negotiation perspective, or?
Sure, it can be anything, but
just from a negotiation.
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that. So as a resume writer, you'll see a variety of prices, right? So you'll see the low end, you'll see big companies that source out their writing for a couple $100s. And then there are other companies that, they may sell resume writing services for a couple $1,000s. And I like to kind of be in that happy medium. So when somebody does try to negotiate with me, for whatever reason, they can't pay the full amount. I usually just simply tell them no, because I don't outsource my writing. I've built my company based on, it's based around my name, my face. So I do the writing. I want my clients to be really, really successful, and I invest a lot of time and mental energy into writing a resume. And usually I am almost completely booked with clients. So if somebody tries to negotiate, I say no 95% of the time. Sometimes I'll be having a great day and I'll be like, sure, I'll give them something. But I guess it's a value proposition on my end, where I'm like, no, because, and then usually, that person respects that, and they respect me even more, and they end up working with me anyway.
Well, the leverage is on your side. You've got a full list of clients anyway. Your calendar is full. You're not worried about paying your water bill or whatever. I agree. Definitely for certain things that like know what you're worth, like stand your ground, be comfortable saying no.
Yeah. Do you have any stories that really stand out with clients that you've worked with or anybody that you've just helped personally negotiate their salary?
Well, a lot of times it's working with new executives who have come from either an individual contributor role or they were an account executive with commission and like a very typical simple comp plan, and now they're into the big leagues and they're going to be director, VP, C-suite or whatever, and they they haven't adjusted to that yet. They don't know, again, all those extras to the very first bucket I mentioned originally, like the what bucket. Like they're thinking about salary bonuses and maybe some equity, but they're not really considering sign on or how to negotiate premium travel or PD stipends or exec coaches or personal drivers or like it can get crazy the bigger you get.
Yeah.
But all those things, I think it's fun because I get to like open their eyes a little bit and see, okay, let's come up with a wish list here and see what happens. So yeah, a lot of the offers just get bigger because we fill them up with more stuff that they weren't considering originally. I think the most exciting ones are always offers where we can add milestone payments. So this is something a lot of people don't really think about either, but a milestone payment or a milestone bonus is basically like a big bounty you put on a big, hairy, audacious goal kind of thing. So the company probably wants to, well, in its most simple form, like hit certain revenue or profit milestones, right? Like we want to grow from 10 to 20, 50, 100, whatever million. So you could put bonuses on those. Like, great, if I'm the chief revenue officer and I help us grow to 50 million, you'll cut me a check for 1% or something. I've also seen it where like a chief financial officer was brought in because the company wanted to go public. And so they said, okay, if we go public, if you successfully help us go public, we'll cut you a check for $100,000. So there was a milestone that was like around an activity kind of thing. The board was really gung-ho on. So usually those are great because they're win-wins. Like the company really wants to hit some huge milestone. They bring you in to do it, and it is largely in your control, just around how hard you work and how hard you push to get there. It's unlike equity, which has other forces and factors on it that aren't all in your control all the time, that, is also important. You want to think through equity and be smart about it. But milestones are just sometimes even more attractive because they are within your control. They are win-wins and they don't impact the company's cap table. Like often it's easier to get them to agree to those than some like much higher equity number. So I love crafting milestone plans with people because you can get super creative with them, and that's where the dreams start really manifesting.
Yeah.
Like, okay, in the next 2-3 years, if we hit these big things, that's gonna be nice.
Yeah. And that's a win-win for the company too. So it's almost like you're presenting a situation or a milestone that it's like, how could they say no to this? Because then that person, that CRO or whoever it might be, is going to have a lot of motivation and incentive to work really, really hard to meet those huge milestones.
100%. And if anyone listening is in a situation where the company is not planning on getting acquired or IPOing for as far as the eye can see, like if the founders are already successful and they just want to run this as a lifestyle business or never sell it or whatever, that's also a situation where milestone bonuses make a lot of sense because equity doesn't make sense in that situation. It's like, well, it's not going to be liquid to you anytime soon, so shoot for something else.
Could you give us just 2 or 3 more kind of outside of the box ideas for different things that we could negotiate?
Yeah. I love helping people with travel because a lot of people like want to fly nice and they don't know how to ask for that without sounding douchey. So typically you can just frame it as like, how about premium economy for anything over 3 hours, or business class for anything over 5 hours, or intercontinental, something like that, where you frame it as like, if they're not going to say yes as a blanket statement, then you can kind of put those guardrails around it. Is doable a lot of the time. And then, I mean, severance is a huge one. Severance, a lot of people are very uncomfortable with. They think it's like talking about a prenup. They are scared to even bring it up. And this was a study that was recent from Pavilion that said like over 70% of executives don't have severance right now.
Oh, wow.
Which is like criminal. So just to give like the 101 on it right now and clear some myths, like we are talking about termination without cause, right? This is not some performance-based thing where they're letting you go because you sucked. This is like some force happened, something that is like beyond your control, that is non-cause, that resulted in that loss of job, right? So at the executive level, I mean, it takes a long time to find your next role, and this is about protecting yourself. And the standard is typically like 3 months of base pay for termination without cause. The higher up you get, the more senior, like I'm really encouraging executives to shoot for 6 to 12 months. And there are some extra things that you should also be thinking about layering in terms of like also including a prorated bonus on that. I mean, if you're let go 2 weeks before the end of a bonus period and you lose that whole chunk, I mean, you earned that. Like, you should be entitled to some of that, right? Same with the equity. Like, I often encourage people to negotiate continued vesting on their equity for the length of their severance. So things like that are just, again, getting smart about what your options are and positioning it in a way that makes sense to the company too.
Yeah, there are just so many things that we could negotiate. And I think, Devon, this has been a really eye-opening conversation.
Are we going to leave it on severance? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think to kind of not leave it on severance, what are the top 2 takeaways that you want our listeners to walk away with today?
If you don't ask, you don't get. Closed mouths don't get fed, Jay-Z. I think, well, those are my favorite quotes. It's like, you have to ask. You have to get comfortable asking.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Well, what are you up to now, and where can we find you on social media?
I am up to all sorts of things. Some fun things on TikTok. Find me at Boardroom Confidential. It's the handle. And boardroomconfidential.com, which is where all the playbooks and consulting services and all that is. And I'm very excited about a community that I'm going to be launching in the fall for executives that'll be all about accelerating your career, negotiating more kind of thing, which I'm only doing because so many people have asked me about it. Everyone like wants a community, and I'm like, are you sure? I don't know. But now I've come up with some fun ways to do it. Like, I want to incorporate like executive wine tastings. My wife's a winemaker, and like business book clubs and like all this. We're going to have fun too. So if you want to have fun, if you want to make more money, like come join the wait list for the community at boardroomconfidential.com.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you very much, Mary. I've had fun.
Thanks for listening. I will be releasing episodes every Monday, so be sure to subscribe on the platform that you are watching this, give it a 5-star review, and we'll see you next time.